Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi Thorin Lines. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Luke.
And in today's video, we are reviewing The Creator. If you like the sound of that, like and subscribe and stick around.
So The Creator, we did the trailer reaction. We've talked about it a bit in other videos. We were very, very hyped about this movie and had high expectations. So you're going to have to stick around to find out if we thought it lived up to the expectations. But first, what's this movie about?
Well, this movie is set in an alternate reality when we have done it. We have had AI. They have become robots. They are helping us with the workforce, the police force, everything. But unfortunately, they have bombed America, and America with its Western allies have gone to war and against AI, and that's kind of where this movie picks up.
Yeah, so we follow the main character who was in the beginning working undercover, trying to help them discover a character called Numata, which is meant to be the chief AI creator. So basically in this place called New Asia, which is supposedly in Southeast Asia, they're still friends with the AI, work with the AI, and still developing AI. So they are essentially the enemies of the US and their allies. He's undercover. Basically, the US ruined his undercover mission, and in the process, his newly found wife and their unborn baby are killed. He vows that he doesn't want anything to do with the military anymore, and 5 years later they say, you know what, we've got evidence that your wife is still alive, and if you help us out, we promise to keep her alive, otherwise we're going to basically destroy the whole area, and we need you to help find this weapon. They don't know what it is, they just know where it is, and he knows this base, so he comes on board. And basically what kind of happens from there without giving away too much?
He finds a super weapon that could bring down humanity, but it's not what he was expecting, and then the plot goes from there.
Yeah, he discovers this child. Won't ruin it exactly what happens, but you can see in the trailer this child is the weapon, and you can kind of put the rest together where it goes from there. So who stars in this film? Who's the main character?
Denzel Washington's son, John Day Washington.
Yeah, and he's... What else? Was he in the recent movie? It's like where they go backwards half the cast. Tenet, that's the one.
Yes,
Is he in that? Yeah, so he seems to be in these blockbuster films. I don't know anything else he's in. He just gets blockbuster roles.
Yeah.
Do you think he's a good actor?
I think he does a decent job, but it's hard to say would he be as good as he was without his father's name.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of nepotism in the Hollywood world, but it's interesting that he seems to only get big roles and no small roles. So let's move into the scoring, because I'm sure we've got heaps to discuss afterwards. So what do you give the plot out of 10, Jacob?
I give this a 7. I see what they were doing. I really liked what they did at the start, really liked the premise there. But unfortunately, they kind of messed the ball. It became kind of an oppression and that sort of film. But for me, I think they had somewhere going, but unfortunately, they kind of messed the boat and it could have been better, but I still enjoyed the spectacle and the world building, everything like that, but unfortunately it messed the mark and it could have been a better plot, and hopefully if there's a sequel, they improve with the world building and everything else.
Yeah, I gave it slightly higher, a 7.5. Really liked the premise. It was even better than I thought from the trailer. I liked that it was futuristic and not kind of aliens and people from other planets. It was just a progression of where our world is possibly heading and a sneak peek into the future. So I think it nailed it with that, but it loses points with actually the storytelling that came from that. So it had a cool world, a cool premise, but the story they went with, I think, could have been a lot better. So a 7.5, but it had the potential to be much higher. What do you give the acting?
I give this a 9. I really enjoyed the performances. I do think the scripts that they were given weren't that good, and they did come across, especially the main characters, kind of arrogant and kind of very selfish. But that's human beings for you. If it wasn't for the performance, I wouldn't have felt that. So that's how acting is supposed to be, and I think the performances were great. It was just the scripting that I didn't particularly like.
Yeah, I gave the acting a 7 mainly. It's a tricky one because a lot of the actors were meant to be robotic AI, so they're not going to have too much personality. But I think the characters they chose, especially the main character, I think wasn't that interesting or that likable. There's just a few things about it could have been a bit better, so it lost a few marks there, so it got a 7. What about the experience or the way the film was presented for you?
For me, I actually got to see this in a new cinema in Australia, Screen X, and I thought it was really cool to watch it in this cinema. But unfortunately, I feel like they could have used the production of how the cinema is a little bit better, but I really gave this a 10, really enjoyed the spectacle, the action scenes. This is really where they spent the budget, really enjoyed the scenery and everything like that.
Yeah, I gave it a 9. I think the experience didn't drag on too long. I was kind of engaged the whole time. Visually looked really cool. I liked that the choice of weapons and the way they went with the armor. It was kind of believable. It actually seems like that's where military is going in the future. So they nailed that. Same as Jacob, I saw it in the X cinema. I just wish there was more scenes where it immersed you, where there was during the action, yes, it immersed you completely, but the rest of the scenes were just on the screen in front, which I understand why they have to do that, but I think it would have been really cool to see a whole film like that, and maybe they'll start filming some like that, but not in this case. What about the ending?
For me, this gets a 6. If they do a sequel, but I believe this film is flopping, so they might not. It leaves questions and you don't get answers. So personally, the ending's fine, but I wish I had more. So yeah,
I gave the ending a 5.5 just because it kind of it left more problems than it solved. It seems like there's a lot more story after this to move forward, but I don't think it was set up to be a sequel. So you kind of just left with nothing. You go, well, what happens next? I'm never going to find out, which is unsatisfying, really. So a 5.5. What about the originality of this film?
For me, this gets a 9. I really enjoyed the new neatness. Could possibly, in an alternate reality, AI could be like this. It's a really cool thing to think about, and I really enjoyed the world building. I think is the best thing, and unfortunately, they actually don't focus on that. I think they focus more on the characters, and the characters aren't that interesting. But when they show you the world and the different things and the Buddhist temples and different things, that's the best part about the movie.
So I gave the originality a 9.5, even though the concept of AI isn't original. It was cool to see it expanded and see it at this scale. So I actually think it was really original. Just loses a few marks for some of the ways it went about it. But it was a very good film in terms of how original it was compared to what else is out there. So how appealing is this film?
Personally, I think the creator, I could recommend this. It has more appeal to it compared to Interstellar and that sort of sci-fi, because it's not as confusing. It's a lot more simpler, so I think it has more appeal because the casual audience member could watch it and go, well, I got something from that. It wasn't as confusing and complex, so that's why I think it's more appealing compared to the more confusing sci-fi movie. It's a lot more simpler. It's telling what it's telling, and I think it's a lot more appealing because of that.
Yeah, I gave it a 7 for appeal, just because I think it'd be hard. I just don't think futuristic sci-fi is for everyone. I think it's quite divisive. But I think the fact there's not really too many big action films at the moment makes it a bit more appealing, but that's just currently now. But in terms of in the future or comparing it to other action films, I think it kind of lacked it. There wasn't that much action scenes in it. There was on a big scale in terms of the things that blow up and the things that crash and break, but there wasn't that much combat. So I don't think it's that appealing. I think it's It's a very niche market that would see it, but maybe I could be wrong. So I don't know too many people that would go out and see this that aren't already into this genre. So a 7. How recommendable is this?
This gets a 7. I think a lot of people would enjoy this because it's a unique concept, but I think needs to be watched and at least respected. It's not the best movie, but I think it has something, it just didn't nail it, and that's something that more movies need to be original, and unfortunately it doesn't nail it, but I would recommend it to people at least to make people make more unique ideas.
So I gave it a 6.5 just because it's hard to convince people that aren't already a fan of this genre, as mentioned before, to give it a watch. And I guess my experience of it was even for fans of the genre, I don't think it nailed it either. So I wouldn't want to recommend to someone that isn't already interested because I'm setting them up for failure. Where those that do like the genre, give it a watch. It's something different, but it's not mind-blowing. How rewatchable is this film?
This gets the lowest score of 5. I would watch it again to pick up on things and to, you know, enjoy the scenery, but it's the sort of movie that you know how it ends, so you already know how it finishes. Some movie, like Avengers Infinity War, for example, we know how Thanos wins, but the journey is still awesome. What with this movie, it doesn't have that same impact, so yeah, wouldn't watch it as much as other movies.
Yeah, very similar. I gave it a 5.5. I would probably rewatch it, at least the start again, just to pick up on a few things that I missed. But watching the whole thing again or watching it multiple times again, I don't see it. I don't think when it comes to streaming, I'm going to be like, oh, great, it's on there. I've been dying to watch it. I think I'll go, oh, I've seen that. But if someone puts it on, I'd probably sit there and watch it again. But I don't think I'd actively go out of my way to do so. So what was your final score?
Out of 100%, it gets a well-deserved 76. I think it had an awesome premise that unfortunately fumbled and cracked. The world building was there, and I would like there to be a sequel because I think there was questions that didn't answer, and I would like to see what would happen. So hopefully it happens, but I would recommend seeing it just to see the world and the visuals on its own.
Yeah, so mine fell a little bit shorter at 72%. For a sci-fi futuristic movie, for my liking, that's not too bad. That's not quite my genre, but I think it had a lot more potential. I think the plot should have been a 10, but I just didn't quite get it. And I think that would have pushed everything up. The acting was always going to fall a bit short, I think, mainly because of the robots in it. And then that would have then pushed the rewatchability and the recommendability up a bit, and would have got to maybe push that 90% if they just nailed a few more things with the plot. So 72%. So I guess the question is, did it live up to the hype?
No.
No? Where were you thinking it would have fallen?
I was hoping it was going to get around 90%, but that didn't happen.
Do you were saying the other day that you thought this might be your favourite movie of the year?
No, that's not the case.
Where do you would it make the top 5, top 10?
Maybe around 11.
Yeah, which is kind of sad, but I don't think it was horrible. It just didn't tick enough boxes compared to some other films I've seen this year. Is there any discussion point to this film you might want to talk about? Because I think there won't be a second one. I think that's probably going to be it. So that means there's a lot of things to pick apart. Any discussion points?
I might leave that for the comments section.
Okay, so leave some comments below what you think or what your thoughts are on the film.
Well, as always, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down what your thoughts are, and as always, you're awesome and keep being awesome, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.